Hey, welcome to the 2-month review. This is our weekly podcast and videocast in which we talk about a single book bit by bit and section by section each week, sort of recapping it, enjoying it, finding new things to talk about in relation to the book, hanging out, having fun, doing all sorts, making jokes, talking about Velcro sometimes, and anything else. And this week we've been reading The Physics of Sound by Georgi Gospodinov. And this week we're going to be joined by him, hopefully. We have a little bit of technical problems that are going on his end, but we're hoping that we can get that straightened out as we go along.
Wow, way to blame the artist. Jeez Louise,
I'm blaming the technology.
No, what's your problem? Google. You said technical problems on his side. You're just heaping everything on him. Like, you should have had it fixed for him, ready to go, since you're the one in charge.
This is true.
So why don't you just back that up a second and take some ownership, Chad?
Welcome to the 2-month review.
Yeah, Chad. No, don't start again.
Don't start again. Screws up in a different way every week.
I do like being here for the introduction.
There's so much more I should say. That's the thing. Like, there's so much more like just rote material that should be included. Like, you could buy the book for 20%.
Yeah. I'm sure Brian would appreciate that.
Just the full. You can follow us. There's
the full 20-minute version.
Dude, I mean, some of the podcasts I listen to have like 8-minute endings with all that kind of stuff and all that information. But yeah, so this is our podcast where we screwed up. And we already have one comment of Chad W. Post lied to me, which is pretty much the way of the world at this moment in time. So, but as always, Brian is here. How are you doing today, Brian?
I'm great. Thank you, Chad.
Good. And we are joined by Santiago Morrice, who you may recognize as the author of all the posts on 3% about the physics of sorrow.
Hello.
Well done, Santiago. I haven't read any of them because they're kind of boring, But,
yeah. No, that's what I was going for from the start. Just dull.
Dude, he's a grad student. What do you expect? You got to keep.
What the hell is that supposed to? What's that supposed to? Dude, he's a grad student. Lower your expectations, okay?
Grad students are taught to write boring.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, though that was kind of the start of Chad and I's relationship on this project, was having me needing to step away from, I don't know, everything I learned to do in the last couple of years.
Screw Chad for a moment here. I want to hear about you, Santiago. Tell me, so did you do literature for undergrad and then went into grad school, or what was your journey there?
Let's see. So I went to undergrad at UC Merced in the Central Valley, California for anthropology, social cultural anthropology.
I was born in Fresno.
Oh, right on. Yeah, no, I've heard a lot of the California mentions from you, so I figured that would come up eventually.
Oh, cool.
How was growing up in Fresno?
Hot and had lots of meth. Well, no, they didn't have meth back then. It was just like really bad cut cocaine. But
there's meth there now for sure.
Now it's meth. Yeah.
They're growing somewhere. And then after that, I went to Mills College in Oakland and got my MFA in poetry there.
Oh, awesome.
Took a few years of a break from school to teach back at UC Merced, and then at University of Rochester now for a PhD in English.
Oh, dude, we gotta hang out. I did my MFA at San Jose, South Bay. So
very cool. Very cool.
All right,
yeah.
So
that's
in English now. Very cool then.
Yep.
And then how did you end up here in Rochester?
So I pretty much only applied to Northeast schools because I wanted to get away from the sun for as long as I possibly could. And
mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Exactly.
Mission accomplished.
It's literally snowing.
I'm missing the snow right now. I'm out of town at the moment, but I'm sure it'll be there when I get back in May. I'm sure it'll still be. But a good friend of mine, an old boss, Tom Hodem, who was a co-director of the writing department at UC Merced, went to Rochester years ago, and so he gave it a bunch of good recommendations, and I got in there, and the package was decent, so I went for it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then you ended up with this particular assignment for the semester.
Yeah. Without getting into too much detail of what this means, like, it's been the most fun I've had in the last couple of years.
Oh wow, cool.
Why do you say it's the most fun?
Because it's interesting. Because I don't like. Again, we had this conversation at the beginning of this project where I had to step away from all the academic reading and writing, and kind of return to a point where talking about reading and writing is fun again, especially coming from an MFA, which I mentioned before. Like the involvement, being able to look up an author who's alive and, you know, see their Twitter feed, see their I don't know, see some review that they wrote for something else. Like just being able to engage with a living work has been the most fun so far.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. But before you get into it though, too, do you still write poetry?
I do. I tend to get a little tapped out during actual busy grad school time, but every April I get a little bit of a fire, especially seeing a lot of all the poetry month stuff. A bunch of my friends who don't normally write get into it. Just seeing the discussions about poetry as a whole just kind of ignites me a little bit. So I'm able to kind of go back, and so I've been writing recently for after like maybe, I guess the last time I was writing excessively was Thanksgiving was probably the last actual break I had.
Wow.
Yeah.
I went to a poetry reading last week with one of the BOA authors, Sean. The second O of Sorrow is the one that just came out. Okay. And he had like this, it's funny because he had this, he must have been like in his 40s, maybe going closer to 50, if I were to guess. Mm-hmm. But he had this way of reading his poems that reminded me of like late 80s breakbeat kind of thing. And this is from like this, like, it looks like a white dude that could have come off like a Lucky Charms box, right? Like he was like a white, like really white dude.
Yeah.
And like before he started going, he was like doing his
getting into
like getting videos. And one of his poems was like 4 pages on LeBron James because he lived in outside of Akron. So like he did like the biography of Ohio told through LeBron James. It was interesting. It was very refreshing because it wasn't like the poetry reading voice of ba 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 ba.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Cool. It was cool, man. You got to come out to some of that stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I'm learning. The more I'm there, I'm learning more about the local poetry scene in Rochester. I definitely need to get out of the house more.
Yeah,
but nobody likes poetry. Forget that. Let's talk about things.
No one does. No one does.
Like
Brian,
books.
you need to know about this. There was a Danish poet we used to do these events with the Ledig House, which is it's north of Hudson. It's an Art Omai, and it's a place where like they have international authors and translators come and spend some weeks there as like residency. And frequently they have some of their people come here to Rochester and do an event where they'd read a little bit of their work and they'd interview them for a minute, and it was a way to introduce them to a new audience. And one time there's a guy who came who is a poet from Denmark, and I didn't have any of his poems, and I couldn't find much of his bio online. So I sort of like came up with some questions about the festival he started or something else. And he got up to read, and he's like 6'4". He's giant. And he gets up and he starts reading, and it's like a pure rap, the fastest sort of rap sounding poetry I've ever heard in my life. It was like hyper speed, and everyone was just like, whoa, what is this?
Right.
Oh, was his name Snow? Remember Snow?
Yeah, he was Snow.
No, don't bring Snow into this.
Snow's Canadian. Snow's my people.
Yeah.
Informer.
Snow's very
totally
good. Yes,
Informer.
Yeah.
I just remember the part where he says, like, look up my bottom. Something about he pulls his part of my cheeks and look up my bottom because he had drugs in his bottom.
That's just the pinnacle of Canadian reggae rap.
We're the pinnacle, and also the only one.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts? Like, if you were to distill Physics of Sorrow, what's your elevator pitch to get one of your buddies to read it? What would you tell them?
I think again, this is definitely still part of the fun that I've had reading this piece has been being able to step away from having to critically look at it. And so it's just been so good reading this, not having to draw any comparisons between any other works necessarily. I'm just really diving in. Yeah. And I think, I don't know. I think if I had to pitch it, the quickest way I could describe it is just it's just a quantum, like, again, I'm so glad we finally got to the quantum parts of it between like this week and last. Like it's just a quantum branch. That's the quickest way I could describe it. You have just one little snippet of possibilities lined up erratically, and that's it. That's how I would sell it, and I'll just leave it at that and let someone pick it. I mean, obviously you can chime in and talk about the discussions of Bulgarian history and I don't know, fatherhood and the Greek myths that we've beaten to death at this point. But at its core, it's just this really cool quantum exploration.
I like that. All right.
That's a good way to put it. I have a question. Did you find it funny?
Oh God, I was laughing probably every section. Just that combination of like quiet sorrow, appropriately enough, and just laughing. That section on him eating the oyster when he finds out about his wife's pregnancy, I was losing it. And then the kind of, again, it just felt like such a balancing act. And like by the end of, by the end of the epilogue, not the end of the epilogue, but the end of that last section, what is left at the end, where he's just kind of providing all these alternate takes of all.
Oh boy. Uh-oh. I think we have a problem. Yeah.
Sorry, my computer froze for a second.
You're back.
I'm back.
Okay, mine froze too. As did Santiago. You froze in the middle of that. So
okay. What was the last thing?
You're saying it got to the various alternate takes, and then I think it sort of blanked out there.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, so it was just, I mean, I was hitting those alternate takes of, the grandfather being able to be in contact with his other family, and God, what page is that on? I was just looking at it. I think that's around page 277. Augustine installs the biggest projector in the world at night. A night rain that doesn't get anything wet falls over the whole northern hemisphere. A woman in Harkney receives a letter in reference to the grandfather there. Just all of these alternate takes, and just being able to imagine all of the things that he's reported as happening as being, I don't know, nicer.
Yeah.
And so it's just that balance between wit and then these heart-wrenching kind of craft choices that he was making that it just kept getting me every single time it would happen.
It felt like in reading your pieces that like it was interesting because this whole project is set up in this way, that is an experiment where you're trying to understand the book as you're reading it, and you're reading it for the first time. You have no idea what's coming next, and so you're writing these long pieces that are sort of diving into the different aspects of it that you're picking up on from either the discussion or from your own reading, and then trying to like make something that makes sense out of that and build it as you go, and build your reading as you go, which I think is really interesting. And I liked reading your pieces because it seemed like you were discovering things that then sometimes would come up weeks later. So like dealing with like the idea of like this whole thing set up as like a spiral, and then like 2 sections later it's like a whole DNA thing, and everything's a spiral, and it loops around, and like it's an interesting process of like watching yourself read something to try and figure it out. I mean, we had that a little bit with the invented part, but I had read it before, so I sort of knew. But like, nevertheless, going through it in this way, really like it makes you focus on like how you come to read instead of just being like, it's enjoyable. Which is a big difference. What was that? What was your experience like writing those? Did you just get into it and just love it, or did you struggle each week trying to figure out what to do?
It alternated. Like I'm looking at, I went ahead and put up some of my old notes, like just to look at, and there was definitely some weeks where I was just kind of scraping for something to say because I was just like inundated with information, inundated with like possibilities, like sometimes a little scared of not getting it right, even though that's not a problem at this point. But then there were some sections where I just felt like he provided so much to go over within that same like within that own section. So like looking at the prologue, like there's not a lot necessarily there, but then you look into all the different authors and the pieces that were being drawn on, and you find out that Gustin is completely made up, and that's all interesting on its own. But then you get to a section like the trial on behalf of the Minotaur, and there's just so much there to look at. So it definitely it shifted a lot, which I think just says a lot to the trajectory of the book as a whole. There's a lot going on, and each section is very different. And I can't remember if it was you or Brian that necessarily brought this up in a previous section, but it was during the time capsule discussion. One of you had mentioned that just like you could rip a section out and the piece would still make sense by the time you hit the end. You could rip the end out and the piece will still make sense. You could rip the first section out and everything still holds up. You could rip some of the smaller stories out and the whole piece still makes sense. And I think that's impressive. Like that is a great feat to accomplish.
Yeah. And that tied into like part of that whole idea of the spiral and the DNA, and like that part in the time capsule is where it's talking about coding, right? Where it's like that things are coded so that if it's incomplete, you can still figure out what the goal would be.
Right.
There's some part of that to this book of like, there's somehow that it creates that engine and that you can miss something and yet get the whole sense of it and fill that in there. There's a redundancy built in that's not boring. That's a redundancy built in that lets you know what's supposed to be there.
Exactly. And that's definitely where the spiral was coming to me, because I kept making kind of notes on the back of the book of moments of encountering a certain theme. I kept going like, okay, this was mentioned in this other section, but it's not quite the same. So I would put the dot a little further than the previous point. And eventually you just end up with a spiral. If you just kind of run all those dots in a row, you get a spiral. And that aha moment for the time capsule where like this book just felt like that. It felt like a time capsule. It felt like trying to isolate a particular moment in time, even though it spans, mythic, and it spans the 80s and it spans the 40s and World War I. It's isolating all of that into one complete unit. Yeah. Especially how the prologue and epilogue close each other.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Did you have a favorite section?
Oh man, it's a really close tie between
it's like picking
elementary physics of sorrow. Huh?
I was gonna say that's like trying to pick a favorite kid to eat.
Easy to do.
Easy. We don't have any kids. It's very easy.
I got 3 choices. I know which one's tender.
God.
This podcast has gotten me on a list. 100%.
Oh man, I was when I was reviewing the one of the earlier ones, I think you had a Luce Baker on, and everyone was just talking about eating kids, and I just could not. I was trying to keep my laughter down in the library and listen to that seriously. I even had an awful comment passed through my head right now, but we're just
that was the baby back ribs podcast there.
Oh yeah, that is. Yep. Right on.
Someone made a veal comment, I think, but I can't remember who.
I think I did that. I love veal. Veal's delicious. It's good stuff.
I think either Time Bomb or the Physics of Sorrow section specifically, just because they feel like, again, I'm honing myself as like a formalist and looking at like form and poetics in work more than anything else. And for me, and craft especially, and for me, the Time Bomb section and the Physics of Sorrow really just lay out blueprints for the whole rest of the work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like those are my favorite.
So is that mainly that's where your academic study sort of intersected with this?
That's where my hypothetical academic studies are. I haven't been doing any. I'm hoping that none of my advisors or anyone's watching this, but I haven't done any amount of work to consider, a serious career in anything. But it's what I've gotten the most satisfaction looking into overall my entire since the anthropology major at UC Merced as an undergrad. It's been the most satisfying.
That makes sense. That seems really cool.
Now, did you adopt the out of Africa model as an anthropology major?
Oh God! Oh man, this led to some. You're bringing up some heated discussions in class.
Whoa! Hot take factory, anthropology.
We can throw one of those really nice clickbait captions over this video.
Chad and I are still arguing over dinosaurs if they existed. So I mean, you could really help us out here with solving.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say as an they probably existed. We probably rode them.
Actually, most likely what happened was the dinosaurs fell off the side of the flat Earth, and that's why we don't have any bones. I've never seen any bones.
There's actually there's a much easier answer if you look at the dimensions of the ark, which are given to us.
Oh my God!
You can't fit a brontosaurus in
no, you can't.
Ark.
You can't. So they were put there afterwards.
Yeah. They
those years in the days in the desert.
It's just a bunch of liberal bullshit like global warming,
Yeah.
That's what I think, anyways.
Not eating children.
What was the section where we thought he really started? Or I guess I don't know if I should say we, but I mentioned that I really felt like he was leaning in and kind of really hitting his stride.
I think it was the third one. It was the one after the court case.
Yeah, exactly.
Section 3.
Yeah, the Yellow House.
House. Yeah, okay. The one that opened with Asylum, that was a great piece.
Yeah, because it has the thing about the cowboy movies too.
Oh, okay,
yeah. Them watching and rooting for the Reds.
Yeah, and that works great because that goes right into Time Bomb, which was another just fantastic. So yeah, I could see it. It really kind of gained some serious momentum from 3 to 4. And
it has that great bit where that's when it has one of my favorite sections too on 89, where he's looking through his the letters that he wrote. And it's like, oh, I want us to be happy again as we were on March 8th and 9th with 3 exclamation marks. What I wouldn't give to remember what happened on March 8th and 9th is part of that lack of memory. And that was one of the parts where that humor started really clicking, I think, too. And the sense of that. He, as an update, I think we have things figured out, and he can sign on now whenever he's ready. And if you're listening, you should just sign on and join us for a few minutes here.
Heck yeah.
It's weird. I feel like we're almost stalling. We're vamping for our next guest.
No, that's right. And then
they're gonna start throwing the tomatoes and everything now.
Yeah. That third section has the erotic catalogs, which is another fun one with sex during socialism and how you got pornography and
those were great. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because those first 2 sections are really strong setup.
Yeah.
They're weird, they're a little uncomfortable. You kind of have to trust him and go through it, but once you do, it's all there.
This come up a few times in different forms for different books now. The idea of trusting the narrator. And I'm just curious for you guys, what is it that leads you to trust the narrator and to go with them in given books? In this book, it might be different than other ones, but is there any sort of general rule that you have? Say this comes up with the students sometimes of they just don't go with it, or they're not sure what to do.
Right. I think that's hard for me because I know writers, and I just what they're putting on the page and what they're working so hard to put together. I'll take it. I'll go through it. I'll read it. I'll digest it however I do. But I think that's why there's so many times when writing the blog post, I tried my best to make it a differentiation between what I think was a decision by author Gospodinov and what was something that the narrator Gospodinov went through. I saw the split, and I just went on that adventure with both of them.
This keeps coming up too, and it comes up with Fox because in a semi-intentional way, and semi-intentional in an intentional way, but of this balance between fiction and autobiography, and where the sort of line is drawn and how it's getting played with. We talked to Charlotte Mandel, who translates Matthias Senard, this French author. We've published a couple of his books, and the most recent one's from New Directions called Compass. And she was saying that Compass is a finalist for the Albertine Prize, the New York City French bookstore run by the French embassy.
Right.
Thing that you vote on publicly. And as part of their like sort of promotion for it, they have a night where like someone comes and defends each one of the different books. And she was saying that her book was the only one that's a finalist that's fiction. All the others are like autobiographies, cloaked as fiction, or like fictionalized autobiographies, or they're like they're all in that vein, which has become more and more popular over recent times. Which I don't really have a point, except that like this book sort of is part of that trend, but not part of that trend, in my opinion. Like this is, but it is what you say. Like what parts is he crafting, and what parts are the narrator experiencing, and that kind of distance between the two is important to sort of seeing the whole of the book and not getting caught up in it just being like one person, the narrator and the author is one just thinking through some stuff.
Right. Which again, I don't know if that's just kind of a given for me going through an MFA and just kind of hearing these discussions all the time, but that gets beat out of you really quick in a fiction class at an MFA, the distinction between the narrator and the author. Yeah,
absolutely. How many pages do you give a book, Brian, before you decide that you're gonna read it or not read it?
Geez, I can usually tell very quickly, like if it's a voice that's good, if that makes sense. like you know what I mean? Like if you know what the book's about, and then like, man, this is a really shitty voice. Like I don't know if I feel this or not. Like just from the get-go, you could tell like this is charged. It's really good.
Yeah.
Even if it's like boring or you don't understand it or whatever, just the appreciation of how it's constructed, I'll hang on just for that.
Oh yeah. They definitely got that feeling with this piece.
Yeah.
So
and like physics, the invented part was kind of disorienting at the beginning, but holy crap, was the voice so good? Like I'll stick with it. Like so.
Yeah. It's very distinctive too. So it's mostly like the voice. If the voice is in some way convincing, you're willing to give it a lot of leeway.
Well, I mean, you know, it's back like if you're teaching craft or whatever, and you're talking about the plot's not very strong, but you know, the character and the voice is very engaging. You'll go on that ride. Whereas if it's not, sorry. Like, I'm gonna go read Clive Cussler. That guy just nails plot. You kidding me?
Gets it down.
I feel like I've heard that a lot, especially again having a strong voice, maybe a loose plot. I hear that a lot with poets that turn and try to craft like a longer, cohesive, novelish book, or I mean, it's just a novel, just straight up. But I feel like I've heard that a lot just through discussions.
Sure.
That kind of again, it's that attention of crafting a line for a month and then just trying to craft a bunch of lines in a row, which feels that way sometimes. It just feels like longer, expanded poems or thoughts into full sections.
It's very true.
Yeah, I'm definitely not the type of person that'll just slog through a book just to finish it. Like I'm totally fine with quitting. I'm a quitter.
I really wish I could tell my advisors that every time I have to read Henry James. I really do.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that you really have a thing against Henry James.
I do. It just doesn't. I don't want to talk about it.
Jonathan Franz is going to come after you if he finds out you don't. Like boring classics.
I think I can take him.
I know he's been lifting birds a lot. He's ready to go.
Oh shit.
He's fierce. Who else do you have
this
to
podcast is going to get me in trouble. I'm going to have to fight a lot of people after this thing airs. After this thing goes public.
Do you know how long we've been trolling Jonathan Franzen and he has not responded one single time?
Really? Oh, okay. Never mind then.
He did. I didn't. There was one time in person, the first time I ever met him, that he was like insulted me directly. So that's why I feel like justified in not caring so much about it. But
was he insulting?
Yeah, he was very insulting.
Just generally insulting.
Like, straight up. Like, called me out in the audience of a group of people. I didn't know him, but like I was working for a different press and he called out me and the press, like the press via me being there and like insulted the press. So it was like real weird, out of the way thing.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to work for. He's like, I don't want to write books like those that you publish at Delkey Archive because they're just read by a couple people in a closet. I want to write books that everyone's reading. And that everyone's talking about.
Yeah, that really makes a great American novel right there.
Mission accomplished.
He did. I mean, he did what he set out to do. There's no faulting that part. It's
nailed it.
Yeah, like, okay, buddy. Yeah, fuck Flann O'Brien, I guess, and Aldous Huxley and whomever else. But
they didn't get no book club sticker.
Oprah did not read Making of Americans by Gertrude Stein. I'll tell you that. Dude, backed off of that one.
I think each podcast from now on, we should like do a hashtag of like, yeah, this next episode we're gonna have Salman Rushdie is gonna come on, and then the whole time just be like, well, he's trying to connect. We're trying.
No, that's genius.
Every episode, just pick like a.
Let's just cut this. Let's just cut this few minutes of coming up with this out.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we couldn't get Salman Rushdie, but this week we're very happy. Sherman Alexie is going to be coming on. He's got some real hot takes about the res. Can't wait to hear about it.
This is great. This is a good idea.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I think we should do that.
I think each week should be like just never have him on. No, like you can think of like how many more viewers and listeners you could have. Like, cool! Like, there's going to be a podcast with Jennifer Egan. I can't wait.
I was literally just going to say Jennifer Egan. It's like 10 President Jennifer Egan's coming out next week.
I mean, once they get in here, they're not going to leave until they realize it's not happening.
Yeah, man.
And we can just keep saying it did happen, and people just keep watching or listening and waiting to the end.
Oh, this is brilliant.
I think we should spend our last couple of minutes here just figuring out new schemes for how to like scam people into listening to our podcast.
No, I think that's it. Just that right there.
That's
a good start.
Yeah, you do a whole week saying we're gonna and fingers. I always just like say fingers crossed. That way, like you're not like
just use the emoji.
Yeah, there you go. The fingers crossed emoji.
Yeah.
And then pick whoever you want. Flavor of the month. Cool writer.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in. And just keep tagging them on Facebook. They're just not replying. They're like, I don't know who these people are. Like, I've never heard of any of them. They just keep adding me.
That would be great to be the only 3 people banned by Salman Rushdie on his Twitter account. That'd be great. That's an honor right there.
Margaret Atwood, she'll be great. She'll be great for the next book. Yeah. They would be perfect. He isn't replying now, but he said he thought it was working. So we'll see. He wanted to come in at the end. He has a special thing that he wanted to do for us.
Are we in on this? Have you already come up with this scheme and we're just playing into it blindly?
This is months in the working here. So
like 10 weeks of build up. Yes. Come on, guys. Perfect. It's gonna happen. Oh, he really does want to come on, and he said if he cannot get this to work, we'll record something separately through Skype and be able to add it on. But he does have a little bit of things that he wants to share because he does have some stuff. So it's legitimate, it's real. And if he's going to be at our gala in New York on May 10th too, along with Salman Rushdie and Jennifer Egan and Margaret Atwood. They're all going to be at our gala on May 10th.
Very cool.
Is Jonathan Franzen going to be there?
No, they got the other John Waters.
Ooh,
so
that might be better. Yeah,
come to the gala. There'll be lots of Johns. That'd be another way of.
Yeah, don't say it like that.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect way of saying it.
We're gonna get in trouble.
Come on out.
Find a John. Hang out all night. It's fine. It'll be fun. Anyways,
so do you have any ideas for the next season? You have some books or direction you're thinking of going for the next season, or is that not figured out yet?
After Fox?
Oh, so Fox is the next one.
Yeah, we have to do Fox next, absolutely, because Dubravka is a big deal. That book is going to be really interesting to pull apart on here we can do this as like a bit of a preview, because it is partially things that are included in it. Some of them are very factual and others are sort of invented, and it's playing a sort of game with like where that line comes. And it starts off with like a fairly professorial sort of tone in a way, or like a learned, like, stop it, cat. Professor, sorry, tone about this Russian writer. But then there's other parts of that section that are created. And the whole idea is to look at how books come into being, or how fiction gets written, how you take your experiences and your relationship and transform it into something else. And she's sort of like down, like the narrator, who is similar to a lot of Dubravka's writing. She writes a lot of essays and fiction, tends to be like sort of downtrodden, sarcastic, dislikes like the global economy and like the way that literature is just run by like celebrities and nonsense. And
Bob Honey, who just do stuff, isn't some celebrity cash grab. That's literature, dude. I don't know what you're talking about.
He put a lot of time in those 15 or 16 minutes. He's put a lot of effort into writing that book. I believe that wholeheartedly.
It got the best book review line ever, I think. The person says, this book caused like Stockholm syndrome, where I started liking it because I was surviving it. It's one of my favorite lines ever about a book. Like, wow, all right.
That's some serious shit.
I began liking it because I survived it.
I think that's what I would say about reading Henry James, and then I'll just stop right there.
Oh man. That's rough. I always liked Henry James.
Yeah, I don't.
But I haven't read him like exclusively for a long period of time, which I think.
Chad also likes the St. Louis Cardinals, so he likes a lot of shit. Boom! Pack that in your pipe and smoke it.
We need a quick cut of all of Brian's burns on Chad to finish off the season. Yeah.
Just a quick cut of all of it.
That'd be the cut to start the beginning of the podcast. Chad likes a lot of shit. Yeah,
I can do that. I know how to do that. I'm figuring out this editing thing more as I go along. So
okay, cool.
I'll do that. I'll make that work. There was the last time I did it though was for one of our podcasts where we had Alex Shepard from New Republic on, and he said something in the middle where you're talking about LitHub, and he's like, I was just looking for like a LitHub essay to convince you that this is a good publication. And the one I found was Ulysses, boom or bust. And he was like that shit is fucking sailed. That shit sailed 70 years ago. Nice. It's a good book.
Nice.
That's the beginning of it.
Nice.
It's like cold open, which is those are always fun. But after Fox, so like Fox and Dubravka is great. She's really impressive woman, and there's a lot of people who want to come on and talk about her because she has a huge fan base. But then after that, we're open to possibilities. So I don't know if either one of you have any suggestions that you think of right now.
Not right now.
No, just absolutely not. Oh, we were talking about the possibility of doing the Pessoa book.
Oh, right, the Book of Disquiet, right?
That was one that came up as like it would be kind of tricky. I mean, it'd be dense, but it would be kind of interesting because that book's like, an absolute classic.
Yeah, no, that would be great.
What do you think, Brian? I had an idea one time where I thought it'd be really funny if we read one short story every week for 8 weeks and just talked about that one short story.
That would work.
Yeah. I've been looking for a reason to read Savage Theories by Paula. I can't pronounce her last name.
It's backwards anyways.
But I don't know if I wanted to do a whole season on her book or not. I mean, that book's like a year old maybe at this point.
Which is fine. We don't have to do new books either. I want to do Dubravka because it's new and it's just a big event. But otherwise, we could do things from any point in time.
Yeah,
not bound at all.
It'd be cool to like pick a press that you like or whatever, and we could do one from them. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I was looking through the New Directions stuff. And the Pessoa book seemed like a possibility.
That's one of the presses you actually play nice with?
The book that we just read from them for class, I just did refuse to answer those questions. I try my best. You know what we should do is we should do the 6th volume of my struggle They're sending the galley. It's 1,200 pages long.
Hell no.
little 1,200
page. One essay in Paris Review by him. I'm like, dude, I can't do this. And I was on a train with nothing to do. I just put it down and stared at the headrest in front of me. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'd rather just like do this.
I do like him. I actually do like him and have like a I don't know if it's like a nuanced defense, but it's a nuanced response to it. But I also I listen to most of his books as audiobooks. And I found that I liked it both ways, but I did like the audiobook version because you get to hear like the sort of glacialness of it and like the slow sort of way that the structure comes into being, because a lot of it's just like this generalized like mega structures of like prose and time. And it's hard. You have to go through a lot of it to be able to see that. And it was sort of easier to do that as an audiobook. But with New Directions, the book that we just read, Compass by Matthias Senard for my class, would be absolutely fucking perfect for this format. Like,
yeah, because it's like 795 pages or something like that?
Yeah, almost. I think it's 400. It's like 400. It's 400, 430, something around there. So it's a little bit longer, but what it is like a whole novel about the confronting the idea of people undertaking like Orientalism and approaching the other, and how you deal with that as a complicated issue. That's not, you can't really just be like, I'm an Orientalist now, and all the problems that go along with that of like othering this sort of people, but like as someone who's aware of that idea. And it's all set up as like one night where a guy he's got a fatal disease. And he's thinking back over various things and this like love he had for this one woman who's an academic. And it's pretty interesting because it has a lot of musicology stuff inside of it, a lot of like Arabic culture, things that we don't really, I don't know enough. Like, it's one of those books that you look up things each time and you could really like delve into like what's going on there that goes beyond just like the general kind of sheen of what I read it the first time of like, okay, I get the story and I get like the structure of his ideas, but the specifics of like how this particular composer was influenced by his visit to Istanbul, I don't know, because I don't know any of that shit. Like, I'm not smart that way. I don't have details.
Well, maybe as we get closer to it, you can just do a poll of like, here's 4 books we're thinking of. What do you guys want?
Yeah, that's what, like, if anyone's listening and has any suggestions, you write them to us. Can email.
I'm like Chad. I'm not a dictator that's trying to grab all the power. I want to give it back to the people and let them decide.
We did, even though
the people are going to pick something really stupid because everybody's dumb, I'll go with it. So let's do it.
Art of Influence. We should read the new James Comey book.
Oh, there you go.
We can just go through all the memoirs stacked up at Costco if we're just going in that direction. They're all there just waiting for us, $10 each.
I've been dying to read the latest Poppy Pariah book. If we could get into a Poppy Pariah book, it'd be nice.
There we go. I don't know. I think there's a lot of options. There's a certain sort of book that I think works best for this. That is like a bit longer, because then going through it bit by bit, you don't feel like it's too overwhelming. And
something that requires unpacking.
Yeah, something that requires, and that has those other layers. Like if it were just like I know the ones I'm thinking of most are the ones that we publish are the ones that are easiest to come to mind. But the ones like Maidenhair or Chronicle of the Murdered House or Zone that are all like longer and have like a lot that if you started picking apart and talking about the different sections, that it would really open it up to like a ton of readers who might otherwise just be like, I can't do this. I don't understand what this is. That's the sort of thing that seems to work really well, I think. But anyone listening, give us some recommendations.
Because I'm tapped because I just haven't read anything.
And even if you haven't read it, that seems perfect too. So
I'm still working off of these recommendations that you have right now.
And Brian, you're always finding interesting stuff. So
yeah, man, all the time. Who knows?
Go to the library, pick out whatever library book that you find with all the crazy back cover.
The what cover?
Like when you find like the back the jacket copy.
Oh yeah,
it's
of
always
course.
Like ludicrous.
Yeah, why not, man?
Yeah, we didn't rewrite the jacket copy for this one.
That would have been so hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did that with my class the other night. Had them write their own jacket copy.
Oh, really?
Just like for fun.
Yeah, yeah. About the book that they're working on?
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
So that guy I was telling you, the Lucky Charms guy that was rapping, the poet's name is, no, I'm joking around, but he actually is. I really enjoyed listening to him. His name is Sean Thomas Doherty.
Oh.
And the first poem in his collection is very short, kind of aphoristic. But the poem's called, for Poetry Month, it's called Why Bother, is the name of the poem. Very, very short. And it goes like this. Because right now, there is someone out there with a wound in the exact shape of your words. And that was the very first poem he had. I like that quite a bit because I have all these moments of why bother reading all of this and sharing it with people, or why bother writing your own work, or why bother doing anything.
Yeah,
it's one of those, like, you know, I'm crass and irreverent all the time, but that made me feel and stop and think for a moment, which I try not to do, but it kind of forced me to do that. So, hooray, poetry! April, way to go!
April 1. Yeah.
But no, that made me think of like Physics of Sorrow as well, with like wounds and words that fit the shape of your wound. And like, while I didn't have the same wounds, there was so many moments where it's like there's these pieces that just fit into you perfectly and can fix sorrow in your life. So
I really like the way that when we talked about it a few times, this happened where like we'd talk about the book itself, and then that would spark so many other memories that were like not necessarily related, but were sort of there. I think that's a kind of a powerful statement about what this book can do, and like it's almost like that's the more like people always talk about, especially with translations, like trying to find books that are universal or that are like specific to their locale and yet have these universal themes. And like the universality of this is less about that and more about the fact that these things are giving you, or maybe that's the proof of concept that it is capable of being universal by causing you to remember different ideas in your life or different experiences that sort of relate to this without it being so over the top of like trying to be universal. Like there's it's sort of famous thing that the guy that won the Nobel Prize recently that wrote Never Let Go, and The Very Giant was his name, Kazuo Ishiguro, that he writes his books with like as little style as possible, he says, because he doesn't want it to be hard for anyone to translate. He wants them to be like easily go into other cultures, and that there won't be these questions that the translators have as to like how to do something or what like the specificity of that is. So like
that's so arrogant, Chad.
I know, it really, I mean, he is like a best-selling author. So like obviously like on the day, the interview I read was, he's like, well, on the day that my book comes out, it comes out in like 22 different languages. He's like, and so I want it to be like easy for those people to be able to translate it into those languages. And like, that's a totally different approach than what we're doing here. Like, he's retained the style and like found something else that makes it universal.
Well, you'll notice in my own writings, I refrain from pop culture references wherever, because 200 years from now, when my books are being taught in colleges, I don't want it to be spoiled by dated references. You know, I want it to be timeless.
Of course,
yeah, clearly.
Yeah, 200 years when like. But do you also have to leave those? You have to leave a couple references that aren't real in there. So that 200 years from now, someone can write a whole dissertation and when they figure out like whatever this particular pop song is that never existed.
See, one thing I wanted like that reminds me. Well, one thing I wanted to add too was because it was just amazing how quickly the conversations about this book changed. Because this weeks ago when we were first starting, we were talking so much about minotaurs and Greek myths and all the variants of it, and everyone was bringing their additions forward and lots of. And we haven't talked about. We talked so long. We went so long without talking about baby eating. It was crazy. But just going, it was great to hit this last section and look up all of these names, and they're pretty much everyone that he mentions related to quantum physics is real, I think.
Yeah.
All of those names, all those theories, that was all real and accurate and researched. And so it was a great little twist after having all these kind of mythical scholars to actually just have scholarship right there on the page. We have a poet, we have a Bulgarian poet writing about quantum physics in a serious capacity.
Is there a 20th century scientific anything or ideology of anything that's more inspirational than quantum physics to writers?
I don't know.
Like, because that is like one of those things that like everyone, like once you start hearing about just the core concept, even if you don't know the ideas, like all the math or the ideas, just the core concept of parts of quantum physics is always like, it finds its way into a lot of writers' works and like gives a new way of like thinking about the relationship between characters, between like yourself and reality, between all those things. And like, I feel like it's like, I can't think of any other idea that's been so like monumentally inspiring to so many diverse writers.
For sure. Just that
even going back to like Cortázar. Cortázar was obsessed with like quantum physics and science stuff of that nature.
Right.
I think baseball statistics are the next big wave for that though. Everyone's gonna be like
Twin Peaks. It's gonna be Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks. Oh, you did it this time. I didn't even have to. Well,
no, that's my grand finale fireworks for you. Hey guys, Twin Peaks. Ta-da! That's the show.
I think Rodrigo sent me an email the other day where he said that he had been watching Twin Peaks again and decided that he just doesn't need any other television.
I doesn't
need any shows.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah, I've probably seen the original series maybe 10 or 11 times fully at this point.
Damn.
Yeah,
it's
been on repeat over the years for sure.
Do you watch every episode or do you skip all the shitty?
I have not skipped a single episode in all of those watch throughs.
It's bold.
Yeah.
And do you have a hot take on the new season?
I knew it wasn't going to be the camp that I wanted, and so that's a little disappointing, but I enjoyed it. I watched it.
I think that without the camp is what made it. So I still say it's the best thing I've ever seen on television. I mean, it's been out for a year, like there's nothing like that. But except for Doug Feldick's first produced movie based on his his wine mysteries. Finger Lakes. Fingered. I don't know. I think that we're not going to get Georgi. He's not replying anymore on email.
See, this is exactly what I said. Our show is going to be
it's working.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's working.
That's it, dude. That's our new shtick. I got it.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, there's no messages that I can see. So he's going to. So we can just wrap things up, and then if I can get him to do a Skype thing, we'll ask him some couple questions from you guys, from whomever. And we'll do it that way. So apologize to everyone who is here watching live and does not get to ask your questions. But technology is a bitch that way sometimes, you know?
But if you want, just to
specifically his technology.
Yes, it's not my fault for forgetting to check and try this out earlier.
For the first episode of the next book's Fox, we're going to have Michael J. Fox is going to be on to talk about it. We sent him an advance copy. Michael J. Fox was a big Fox fan.
True.
So if you have questions for Michael J. Fox, he said he'd answer anything, going back all the way to Family Ties, and all the way up through. He'll even do Back to the Future questions and Doc Hollywood if you're interested. So have your questions ready. He is going to be on episode 1 for Dubrovka's Fox book. So
and then
ready for that.
And we already know that our grand finale guest will be Fox and Friends.
Oh, cool!
Oh, fantastic!
Because that only makes sense.
Yeah, just a big round table, discussion.
It's a very measured discussion of Fox. So cool. Well, thank you guys for doing this, and I will see both of you very soon. For anyone who's listening, be sure and read all of Santiago's posts. They're actually really helpful. They're really interesting. We'll put them all together into one downloadable PDF. So if you know anyone who wants to read Physics of Sorrow, doesn't know where to start, or is like scared of it, or whatever it might be, you can give them this PDF and it'll walk them through reading the book and help,
for sure.
Open it up for them. So it's the whole point.
Yeah.
There forever.
Yeah. The next one will be going live tomorrow.
Excellent. And then we have for Fox, if you use 2 month as a code at the end, the number 2 and then month, for that book, for Physics of Sorrow, for Invented Part, for any of the Mercedes Rotorado books, Stephen Springer, the Selected Stories, you'll still get 20% off. That discount is good forever. And Thomas Janssen bestseller too.
Yes,
so
that also includes all of Michael J. Fox DVDs, which will be on sale through Open Letter the entire season we're doing Fox. So keep an eye out for those.
Yeah,
and actually, with that season, I will be doing a curated list of Michael J. Fox's oeuvre of work. So be prepared. You're gonna really
don't forget the Scrubs appearances.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's always a good. Those are good. Good show. With that,
Scrubs is not a good show.
Scrubs is very fun. The first 2 seasons of Scrubs are really, really, really fun.
You went high pitch, which means no. Hey, how was dinner last night? It was good. Yeah, that's the truth. Scrubs is a very good show. That's a lie.
I loved Scrubs when it was on, but I don't think I saw it towards the end.
How can you be trusted? You blame Georgi that he can't come on, and then you say he's coming on. He's not coming on. You can clearly not be trusted.
These are fair. This is fair. I'm getting
another beer. Good night, you guys.